Call the meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance. Mayor Pro Tem Makachek, would you kindly lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Let me start the reading before.
Oh yeah, you got to read that first.
Yeah, thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you for joining us this evening for the September 20th, 2022 Monte Sereno City Council regular meeting. Before the meeting is called to order, I would like to point out a few house rules to assist council members, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. Council members, your microphone is live, so please keep your microphones on mute until you wish to speak. For tonight's meeting, we are using Zoom to host the City Council meeting. At the bottom of the Zoom client, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues such as being unable to hear a council member speaking. Please use raise hand to be recognized by the mayor and enabled to speak to the council. To comment under oral communications or on any agenda item, you're allowed 3 minutes to speak per agenda item. Emails limited to 350 words can also be submitted to the city clerk and it will be read into the record. This word limit is set to adhere to the typical 3-minute time allowance. Only attendees using the Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. Participants calling in from a telephone will only be able to listen and cannot provide feedback or public comment. Lastly, because we are not all in the same room, all votes at this meeting will be taken by roll call.
Thank you. All right, call the meeting to order and request Mayor Pro Tem Brian Makachek to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any requests for any change in the orders of the day?
Mayor, can we do the roll call?
Always, yes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Councilmember Lawler.
Here.
Councilmember Leuthold. I see you, but you're muted. Councilmember Turner.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Makachek.
Present.
And Mayor Elahi.
Present.
And we have a quorum.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we go back to doing the orders of the day. Are there any requests for any changes in the orders of the day? And also from the members of the public, are there any requests for any changes in the orders of the day? Hearing none, we'll go to our first thing, which is a presentation, which is a commendation to Ishaan Prasad. And basically, I think we're all overwhelmed by the work that Ishaan has done in helping us with the ADU process. He's organized it for us. He set up a whole video presentation where each one of us had a leading roles in the presentation, and also organized the door hangers and other items, and with help from Diane Perkins and with the ADU committee. So the city of Monte Sereno, it's my privilege to commend on behalf of the Monte Sereno City Council, recognizing Ishaan Prasad for the outreach effort to promote the building of accessory dwelling units to fulfill the city's housing element requirements, and having us towards meeting an outreach goal of 225 letters, which we are getting close to. And he's volunteered and spent considerable amount of his time in supporting this effort. And he's worked with the city planner in promoting this effort. So now I, as mayor of the city of Monte Sereno, together with my colleagues on the city council, on this day of September, do hereby extend our sincere appreciation and gratitude to Ishaan Prasad. Thank you very much, Ishaan. This commendation is for you. If you want to say anything, feel free to do so. Ishaan, are you there?
Hi. Thank you, guys. Hold on.
You are muted.
Give me a moment. Sorry, I'm in Steve's office right now, and he has his speaker on. Thank you, guys. I don't really have anything to say. I'm grateful. I didn't help with this effort because I was expecting a commendation. I did this because I wanted to, in my view, save my own community. I do think that we've come very close to that, and I'm very hopeful that in the coming weeks that we will achieve the requisite 35 signatures to submit a compliant housing element to the state. So I'm grateful that you're willing to celebrate me at this moment, but at the same time, I'm acknowledging that we are not yet at the finish line, and I'd like to, for the most part, reserve my celebration until we are.
Thank you, Ishaan. I appreciate the spirit of.
Also, overall, this is a team effort, not just me. So I would also like to thank Diana, Ali, and all of the council members and site and architecture commissioners who've been helping put this together. And lastly, of course, Steve Leonardis, as he angrily looks at me.
All right.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Ishaan. And the spirit of volunteerism you have is what's in the entire city. I mean, our city council, they're all volunteers. Our site and architecture commission, they're all volunteers. So it's good to have you on board with helping in the same spirit. Thank you very much. Okay, now we move on. And
Mayor, we have two hands up from Mayor Pro Tem
Oh, yeah.
Makachek and Councilmember Lawler.
yeah, please go ahead. I see Mayor Pro Tem Makachek. Please go ahead.
I'll defer to Councilmember Lawler and I'll speak after her.
Councilor Laurel, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to Ishaan. Your energy, enthusiasm, and dedication to Monte Sereno is deeply appreciated, and it's infectious. The future is bright, and I'm really thrilled that you are helping us out with this. So thank you.
Thank you. I think I'll go to Mayor, Council Member Rowena Turner next.
Yes, I just wanted to say to Ishaan that he's come a long way. When we first spoke, we spoke about a year and a half ago. And one of the things I'm really looking forward to, although I think this commendation is really something he deserves, is that when he turns 18, that he will run for city council. So good luck, Ishaan.
Excellent suggestion. Mayor Pro Tem Makachek.
Thank you. I can only echo the praise for Ishaan, and I will say that I was somewhat uncertain when we went in to do the filming, and when I saw how his vision of doing the filming, the professionalism, the encouragement, and the incredibly polished video that he put together, I was just amazed. His leadership and drive and enthusiasm is just so exemplary. I feel very proud to be in the city of Monte Sereno working with him, and his work with the Youth Commission and moving this ahead is just, I just think this commendation is extremely well deserved, and he earned it. So thank you, Ishaan.
Excellent. Anyone else, any member of the public wish to let's get into this, step into this and have any comments? And your mom can also do so if she feels like it. All right. Let me go ahead and move on with the agenda. Oral communications. Is there any person in the audience or from the citizens who wish to address any matter that's not on the agenda? This is the time to do it.
There are no hands raised.
Thank you. Do we have any written communication that we need to discuss?
No written communications received.
Thank you. All right, then we go to the consent calendar. We have several matters on the consent calendar. I guess we have 7 matters. on the consent calendar. Does anybody wish to pull any item from the consent calendar? I'm sorry, Councilmember Lawler, please.
Yes, Mayor, could we pull item 6 for discussion?
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other item that anybody else wants to pull? Any member of the public wish to pull any item from the consent calendar? If not, let's go back to the consent to council. Is there any further discussions on any item on the consent calendar? If not, would entertain a motion to approve all matters on the consent calendar except for item 6.
So moved.
Any second?
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. If you can do a roll call, please.
Yes, Council Member Leuthold,
Yes.
Council Member Turner,
Yes.
Council Member Lawler,
Yes.
Mayor Potent Mekachek,
Aye.
and Mayor Elahi.
Aye,
That motion passes 5-0.
thank you. So let's go back to consent calendar item number 6. Councilmember Lawler, do you wish to address that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just think it's time that we revisit this. You know, our economy is fully open. I'm not sure it's easy to find findings anymore not to hold meetings in public, especially when most requirements are now downgraded to recommendations. We have meetings up to 1,000, no longer requiring certain things. And I believe that if at minimum we could start doing hybrid, and so to allow public who does want to be in person, be at our meetings. And I know that our youth commissioners would really like to meet in person. So I think it's time that we really have that conversation. Everyone is going about their business. Schools are wide open. Everything is in all aspects back to as close to normal as possible. And people are taking their own precautions. So I think it might be time to leave it up to folks to decide for themselves if they want to attend in person or not.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Leuthold.
Thank you. I just wanted to check with our city manager and see what the state of the art is on what the state has published or not published, or maybe in the pipeline regarding hybrid meetings. If we don't continue this, do we fall back into needing a quorum in the city council chambers and then noticed meetings with addresses in advance and public access if we're going to have some of us participating potentially from remote locations?
I will answer that, as I know that answer, and the answer is yes. If you do not make the findings for continuing meetings under the provisions of AB 361, then basically you would have to have any teleconference meetings under the regular provisions of the Brown Act, which would require that you notice them in advance. You'd have to have a quorum participating within the jurisdiction of the city, not necessarily in person, but at least within the bounds of the city. And that any teleconference locations you would have to publish on the agenda. So if folks are planning on participating from home, that would need to be specified as well. And additionally, any teleconference locations, including your home, would need to be made available to the public. So that is usually the big one that is more difficult for people to entertain. So as Councilmember Lawler noted, there are still recommendations with regards to social distancing. So there is a basis to make the findings, because the findings you have to make is that either distancing measures have been imposed or are recommended. So again, if the council wants to, it can make those findings. However, obviously it's a policy decision for the council as to whether or not you folks would like to continue having strictly in-person meetings, or would like to have some sort of hybrid meeting or purely virtual meeting. And both of those later scenarios would require that you adopt this resolution.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Leuthold, does that answer your question?
Thank you. It does answer my question. And I guess my point about this would be that I would be open to the hybrid I would still prefer that we have the option to participate remotely, or if people have need to participate remotely, that we not be locked into the old rules of quorum in the city and public availability of our locations if someone is participating remotely. If staff is comfortable, I would certainly be comfortable with hybrid and continuing to test that model as we did one time before, with opening the chambers to the public and having most or all of the council members participating, but keep the options open for remote participation without the full old-fashioned way of doing this. So those are my thoughts about it, but I'll be interested in what the majority thinks.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Magazak.
Thank you. My question of City Attorney is very similar to Councilmember Leuthold's. Do we have to make a finding? So this is my question. Do we have to make a finding to allow the hybrid meeting to occur? That's my question. Then I'll have a follow-on.
Short answer, yes. You would need to make these same findings to have hybrid meetings in the way that you've been having them. You could have hybrid meetings where all the council members are meeting in person, and then you have additional opportunities for the public to participate via Zoom. That would probably not require you to make the findings that are in this particular resolution. But if council members want to participate from locations other than council chambers and would like to participate remotely, if you don't make these findings, then you have to comply with the regular Brown Act requirements for teleconferencing, which would include publishing the note in advance, what location you're going to participate from, and making that location open and accessible to the public.
Thank you. My question is, what would our findings have to be so that we can end up with this as a result, which I'm going to now describe? What I would prefer is for council members to have the choice of whether they wish to attend the meeting in City Hall, in chambers, in person or remotely, without having to if they choose to participate remotely, they don't have to publish that location, etc. Because, and my reasoning for that as a request is that I know that the numbers for COVID are understated right now, and there's still a fair amount of COVID out there. I myself am double vaxxed, double boosted, and I've had COVID twice. So it's still very real, and I'll get boosted the next time as soon as I'm able to. But I don't think anyone should be forced to feel uncomfortable by either attending or not attending. So I think Councilmember Leuthold, you and I are on the same page. I'm pretty sure. So that's kind of where I am.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff or on this subject? I guess we're doing comments at the same time now. So Councilmember Lollard, I think you had your hands up.
I did. Thank you, Mayor. So I think that the goal for me was, how do we move forward and give the public an opportunity to see us in council? So if that means making the findings so that we can continue to have hybrid meetings where we have 3 council members in chamber, and we give the public access to City Hall as well as to being available on Zoom. That seems to me, at least it's a step in the right direction. It's a step into getting us moving forward, and it would provide the comfort that folks need, but also we're getting back into the swing of things. And I think that progress is a positive thing for everyone.
Sounds good. Councilmember Turner.
Yes, I just wanted to know, does anybody know what the CDC's recommendation is at this time? The variant for COVID has been pretty prominent. I know that, especially for in the retail sector, for Nordstrom, for Walmart, the number of customers and the number of employees getting sick are pretty high. So I'm concerned about that, and I wanted to see if we have any recommendations from CDC.
Does it sound like we have a later recommendation? I know when this thing was hot, every week, one of the supervisors was sending out recommendations. But it looks like, I think seem to be in agreement that that a hybrid meeting would probably be in order, so that anyone who does not want to show up or cannot show up does not have to, and same thing with the public. If they want to show up, they can show up. Obviously, when you do the hybrid meeting, the chamber should be still made pandemic proof, if unless there's a real concern that can't be done. But it looks like that's the direction we're going. And we did have a resolution 2 or 3 months ago where we were supposed to start hybrid meetings in September, and then because of the rise in the pandemic levels, we haven't done it. The number of cases have gone up. I've also gotten COVID, and my wife had COVID, but it looks like these are more COVID cases that seem to be more like flu these days, a little bit more intensive than flu, than the danger that was there at the outset. So my thought would be, what Councilmember Lutola suggested is basically go to hybrid, and those people who want to show up, and those who don't want to show up, they can operate from their house or wherever they are, and they don't have to disclose where they're operating from, and we don't have to publish a notice of where they are. Now, I understood there was a bill that I think Supervisor Cortese was promoting, allowing meetings to be done either hybrid or otherwise without having to disclose location. I don't know what happened to that bill. I don't know if Attorney Wren, you are aware of whether that bill moved forward or whether it died in assembly.
I'm aware that AB 2449 recently passed and was approved by the governor. That bill would allow participation in remote meetings without needing the, disclose the location and make that location available to the public, so long as a quorum participates at a physical location open to the public, and the member who is absent and participating remotely is participating remotely based on just cause as defined in the bill, which is very narrowly limited to having a contagious illness or needing to provide childcare or give caregiving to another person, or they have a need related to physical or mental disability. And it also limits the number of times per year that you could invoke that particular provision. So unfortunately, that's not going to be the solution. And it also is not in effect until the beginning of next year.
So it sounds like if you want to go to a hybrid bill, we need to make a finding that there's still a pandemic concern. And based on that, we're going to a hybrid finding where council members who want to show up in person will show up in person, and people who want to show up in remote can still do that, and public has the right to show up in person. And we need to take adequate precautions in the chamber to limit any exposure. So
correct. I would, if that is the intent of the council, I would recommend first adopting the resolution by motion of the council, and also directing staff to transition meetings to hybrid meetings. And I will recommend that you inquire with Steve as to the best way to do that and the time frame for that.
Thank you. So we'll get to Steve. I guess we still have some hands up in council chamber. So let me call upon Mayor Pro Tem Mekachek.
Okay, I'm sorry for not including these comments earlier. Councilmember Lawler, I hear what you're saying regarding the Youth Commission, and I will support whatever works for them. And I think what we're talking about could work for them. So my question for you would be, would this hybrid work for them? That's first point. The second point is, I have found that the OWL camera that we have in chambers works very well. And I'm very pleased with that. And I think that makes it easier for having a hybrid meeting. And then my third and final point is that I do believe we need to move forward. My prediction is that COVID will never go away, that it's always going to be around, and maybe it's the new common cold, I don't know, but I don't think it's going to go away. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner?
Yes, I wanted to find out, first of all, if we were to go to City Hall, will we be required to wear masks?
It's something I think I would ask the city manager to address with all the other things that are on the table, which is what kind of precautions will be needed. If you can note that. And Councilmember Turner, did you have any other questions?
Yes, I would like to encourage Mayor Pro Tem Mekachuk to get his 5th booster, as well as you, Mayor Elahi. You better get your 3rd or 4th booster.
Yeah,
Whatever.
I have to give it about 3 months before I can get another one, but we have natural immunity for 3 months, I suppose. Anything else? Any other good suggestions, Councilmember Turner?
That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Leothorpe?
Thank you. Just 2 quick points. One, speaking somewhat to what Ms. Turner raised, and what you yourself brought up, Mayor, the issue of this becoming more and more flu-like. On the news last night, there was a bit of a comment about talking about the pandemic being over. And one of the medical professionals pointed out that with 400 people a day dying, that's still 146,000 people a year, which is about 3 times the flu death rate for normal years. So this is still a very serious illness, and it's killing far too many people. And those of you who have experienced COVID have suffered. And also, I've seen a lot of information that repeat bouts of COVID lead to additional problems. And so avoiding COVID, even if you've had COVID, should still be a priority for everyone. Don't treat it lightly, and because each can be worse and each can lead to worse symptoms. So again, this is still a public health emergency, I believe. We're still very tired of it. People are on the streets, people are going back to normal, but there's still a lot of risk out there. And I think we should be accommodating for the public and our staff, as well as our council members, in terms of what the needs are. So I think hybrid is the way to go for now, and to ease into this, working primarily with staff's needs and the public's needs as we look at transitioning. Last thing, I just want to mention, you haven't opened and closed public comment yet. So just wanted to not lose that as we move ahead here. Thank you.
Councilmember Lawler?
Did you want to go ahead and open and close public comment, and then I'll speak after?
I guess we've been doing questions and commenting at the same time. So if you want to go ahead and
Okay, all right.
make
Well,
your
thank you.
comment, then we can go to public.
Sure. I just wanted to answer Mayor Pro Tem Mekachuk's question about the Youth Commission. Yes, it would be incredibly helpful, because it has been very difficult to get these kids motivated to do the things that they need to do on Youth Commission. And they asked specifically in the last meeting if they could go live. And so I think that you will see a greater increase in participation. We know our youth are not impacted. And that's the thing about COVID is now we know who it impacts. We have treatment, we have vaccines, and we know how to take care of ourselves. And so the R0 is now, I believe I heard it's down below 1. And it's here to stay. This is how coronaviruses burst on the scene in the life of humankind. As viruses mutate, they do become weaker. They become more infectious so that they can survive, but they do become weaker. So this is something that is going to percolate amongst all the other viruses in the world for the rest of our lives. And so at some point, we're going to have to take personal responsibility for our own safety. And I think there's a lot of people now in the country that are doing that, in fact, in the world that are doing that. And we, of course, will do everything we can to make sure everyone feels safe and allow those folks who want to be in person, be in person. So I think this is a good move. Thank you.
Thank you all. I think we have all become medical staff now because of personal experience with all this stuff. I will go ahead and open this to the public now. Does any member of the public wish to comment on the issue? And the question before us is whether we should open our meetings as hybrid or as fully public meetings as they used to be do. So if any member of the public wishes to address us on that, please do so. Any hands raised?
There are no hands raised. Actually, there's one. Phil Living.
Yeah, Mr. Levine, please. Thank you for joining us on this. Please go ahead. It's a difficult subject. Go ahead, Mr. Levine. I don't know if you're on mute, but we can't hear you. Yeah, now you're on mute.
Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
I can hear Mr. Leonardis. Or is that Phil?
That's Mr.
Okay.
Leonardis. Mr. Levine, I removed his permission and put him back in. It's showing that he's muted right now. So, Mr. Levine, could you unmute your microphone?
Okay. Yeah, we can't hear you, Mr. Levine. Let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to council for Mr. Leonardis to make his comment, and then we can come back to Mr. Levine if he's available at that time. Mr. Leonardis, please, you heard everything else, and I guess, you're responsible, obviously, for your great staff. We want to make sure we don't do anything to provide, give them additional risk, but we would like to go to it. So it sounds like the sense of council right now seems to be wanting to go back to a hybrid as soon as possible. So if you can give us some time frame as to when can it be done, And I know you're pretty much set up for it, but please go ahead, share your thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we're able to go back to the hybrid format. We did that earlier in the year. I believe it was around June. We did a hybrid meeting. So we're perfectly capable of doing that. I was just going to defer to City Attorney, Mr. Rudin, to determine if we need any kind of, we adopted this resolution and we do this every 30 days, every meeting. So when does the previously adopted resolution run out? And I think that's when we adopt the hybrid. So would that be for the October 4th meeting, or would that be for the October 18th meeting, I guess would be my question for the City Attorney.
I believe our city clerk has been keeping track of the expiration dates of these resolutions. I suspect this is on the agenda because the resolution is expiring and that we
Yes.
do need it renewed. And as to the direction of the council to go back to hybrid meetings, I think that's, you're going to need to continue adopting these sorts of resolutions to have the hybrid meetings. So I think the timing is a little bit disconnected. If you are having logistical issues or want to set a specific date to go to allowing persons to be in chambers, then, by all means, that can be separate direction. But these resolutions will need to be readopted every 30 days.
Okay, everyone's muted. We can't hear you speaking.
Oh, yeah, I'm muted too, I guess. So it basically sounds like these resolutions are running in parallel. They have nothing to do with when we go back to our hybrid. So what will determine when we go back to hybrid is how soon the city can be ready for that. So if you can let us know what works best for you, for what's the earliest we can go back on hybrid, then that might be a date we may want to shoot for. Mr. Leonardis?
Hi, this is the city clerk. I can start the answer and Mr. Leonardis can finish if he feels like he needs to. According to the city attorney, yes, we will need to adopt these findings for us to continue the hybrid. It will. The last time we or the council adopted the findings was at its August 25th meeting. So we do need to adopt it today if we want to if we want to do hybrid. I feel comfortable doing it as early as the October 4th meeting, but I will defer to the city manager on that.
And is he available, Mr. Leonardis?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am happy to do that on the October 4th meeting. Like I said, we're ready to go. As of several months ago, we were prepared. So that's what the council desires. We will go forward with that.
All right. So I guess we could have further discussion, or maybe you could have a motion to adopt the resolution allowing us to do the hybrid meetings and making the findings, and then recommend that the city council have a hybrid meeting starting with the October 4th meeting. That would be my thought for a motion, if anybody wants to make that.
So moved.
All right,
Second,
second. Any further discussion on the motion?
other than to direct staff to start hybrid meetings October 4th.
Okay,
And my comment would be, before we do the roll call vote, would be that this just be on the consent calendar until we want to revisit it, which could be at the end of the year. But just, we automatically just keep renewing it through the consent calendar, because that makes it easy and fast.
Yes, it's been on the consent calendar and have only been pulled when asked.
all right, so it sounds
Yes.
good. So we have a motion and a second.
Correct.
Motion to adopt the resolution regarding being able to do hybrid meetings and starting hybrid meetings in October. Okay. Roll call.
Councilmember Leuthold,
Yes.
Councilmember Turner. Councilmember Turner, you're on mute.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Councilmember Lawler,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mekachek,
Aye.
and Mayor Elahi.
Aye.
And that motion passes 5-0. Mayor, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to hear Phil Levine. I don't know if he wants to speak to us, but let's go on to the next item. All right, the next item we have is a discussion, and that's new business. So we're done with the consent calendar. There's no unfinished business. New business has to do with the discussion and the direction regarding reach codes for electrification and water efficiency in new construction. There's a staff report. Please go ahead.
Hello, good evening. I am Diana Perkins, the city's planner. And in November of this year, the City Council will review an ordinance to adopt the updated 2022 California Building Codes. As part of this triennial code adoption cycle, the City Council may consider adopting additional requirements for energy savings and water efficiency. Such additional requirements are often called reach codes, as they require standards that are in addition to the state's minimum building code requirements. As part of the last building code adoption cycle in 2019, the City Council adopted a reach code that is often referred to as electric preferred in new construction. So the use of gas-fueled appliances is not restricted, but the electric infrastructure, including an outlet and dedicated circuits, are required to be provided at gas-fueled water heaters, furnaces, or stoves. And this is to allow for the future conversion of that appliance to an electric appliance. And that is the current standards that we have in Monte Sereno. As part of the upcoming adoption of the 2002 building codes, staff from Silicon Valley Clean Energy and from Valley Water provided presentations to the City Council earlier this year regarding their model ordinances for electric and water efficiency reach codes. The staff report details the new construction requirements in both of the model ordinances and provides staff comments. If the City Council would like to proceed with additional reach codes in the upcoming building code adoption, staff recommends that electric appliances be required inside the building for new construction, but that exterior appliances would still be allowed to be gas fueled. And additionally, staff would also recommend that new construction be required to have 2 level 2 electric vehicle chargers. And lastly, if the city council would like to include the staff recommended reach codes or other reach code requirements in the upcoming building code adoption cycle, that direction would need to be provided at tonight's meeting in order to be able to incorporate those items into the draft ordinances that will be presented to the city council in November. So here tonight, I can certainly answer any questions you have. We also have Ali Fatehpour from the building department available to answer any questions, as well as Zoe Elizabeth, Myra Vega, and Peter Mustasich, representing the Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And that completes the staff report, and we are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. And does any member of the staff of Silicon Valley Clean Energy wish to address council at this time? Okay, I'm not hearing that anything from that, so let's go ahead and bring it to council. And
I think Zoe has her hand up.
okay, I guess my screen kind of went weird. Zoe, please go ahead. You're on mute, Zoe.
Good evening, council members. I just wanted to say, thank you for having us here. This is a reach code season, so we're working with all 13 member jurisdictions across Santa Clara County, and we're really here just to answer any questions that you have and support you in adopting the reach codes that make the most sense for Monte Sereno. As you all know, I think 12 jurisdictions adopted reach codes in the last code cycle. There's about 50 cities in California that have adopted reach codes. So we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
You heard the staff recommendation. How do you feel about that? Put you on this.
Sure. So the staff has it's a strong recommendation. It's in line with the city of Cupertino has a very similar reach code that they put into place last code cycle. It would be 9 of our jurisdictions adopted all electric codes last code cycle. And I think Cupertino was the one that they did allow for gas outside. So it would be a strong reach code that helps prepare Monte Sereno for the all electric future, but also takes into account some needs for pool and outdoor heating and such.
I mean, the climate has changed. I mean, from the last reach code cycle, it was more of fear of something bad's going to happen. But if you look around the world today, I mean, I'm originally from Pakistan. One third of their country is underwater. There's floods in Mississippi, and Alaska even has a horrible storm. So I mean, we are really now, where we thought we were going to be. But anyway, those are my editorial comments. Anybody else wish to address? From Silicon Valley Clean Energy wish to address council? If not, let me bring it back to council, and anybody has questions, please go ahead and raise your hands. Your virtual hands, I guess. Mayor Makachuk. Go ahead. I'm Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I'll wait until after you open and close public comment, unless you'd like me to make a proposal now.
This is time for questions probably, then we'll go to public comments and then can come back. Anybody have questions of staff or of Silicon Valley?
So Zoe, could you describe the outreach that was done with the Youth Commission and the residents of our city, and the questions that were asked and the concerns, or can you give us some color on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So Silicon Valley Clean Energy presented at the May 10th Youth Commission meeting on REACH codes, provided an overview of what they are, why they are put into place, and what other cities have done across California. And there were no questions or concerns from the Youth Commission. I also had the delight of, I saw many of you there, of attending the Monte Sereno's community picnic. Definitely the funnest community picnic that I have been to in my time at Silicon Valley Clean Energy. It's a great community. And we had a general booth there where we had a big stand that talked about what the all-electric home was like. We provided flyers on REACH codes and had a sign there to answer any questions on REACH codes. We had about between 15 and 20 folks come by the booth in general. I think there were about 10 folks that I was able to speak to about REACH codes. We didn't, I will say there wasn't any strong outcry or kind of opinions. Honestly, we kind of mostly, as is common in most of these outreach events, get people engaged to talk about, you know, what REACH codes were and those things that wasn't top of mind for folks at that time. The two kind of concern questions we got was, there was one person who was concerned about the induction cooking not being ideal for wok cooking, which is something that we have, you know, we do here, that electric and induction woks aren't as strong and as comfortable as gas woks. And then there was one community member who knew that her stove was going to be needing to be replaced, and she wanted to make sure that any REACH codes wouldn't impact her ability in her existing home. That's another common question that we get at at other community events. And of course, the new construction REACH codes are focused on new buildings, and so they don't impact the ability for people to swap out existing equipment in their existing home.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's an important consideration. We're talking about REACH codes for new construction. Any other questions? Yeah, Councilor Lawler, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This question is actually more for Diana. What is the data on homes built since we passed the last REACH codes that required electric wiring for all indoor appliances? Do we have any data on how many homes actually only went electric, or how many of these folks actually have gas?
We do not have any specific information on that. I can say that from, again, sort of off the top of my head, but from reviewing, the plans for new houses that come in, I would say most often it's ADUs that come in are more likely to be electric solely. But generally a full new house, unless Ollie wants to add anything that he thinks otherwise, I think in general, most new houses still have a gas fueled furnace, stove, and the water heaters are starting to move towards electric more commonly.
Okay, thank you. Because what I'm trying to determine is how many people are still actually wanting gas. And so, but it sounds like they still do. And so I'm not really sure if moving to all electric would be something that would be welcomed by the community.
One other thing, if I can just add on to the outreach that Zoe had mentioned, we also posted information on the city's social media sites, sent out emails to a list of interested parties that the city maintains. And we have also had a sign up at City Hall at the counter to try to inform building permit applicants or design professionals that come in of this study also. And we have not received any questions as staff about this issue.
Okay, it's good to know. Thanks.
Thank you. And all these new applicants still provide for electric connections, even though they may get gas. Is that correct, Dan?
Yes, for the water heater, the furnace, and the stove. are required to have the electric infrastructure provided.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I guess I can go to the public to see if any member of the public have any questions on the subject.
We do have a few hands raised. Louis.
Hey, Louis, please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, my name is Louis Liu. I'm a resident of Monte Sereno. I'm also a practicing architect in town, and I've been practicing for over 35, 40 years. And the primary focus of my practice is custom homes. And so I have dealt with many of the REACH codes in the various jurisdictions over the past 5, 10 years since these things came about. And I want to voice my opinion and also kind of some history that I have with clients. I think the main objective or my main concern is about gas cooking inside the house. Most of my clients still prefer gas cooking, and many are very upset when they find out that they can't have gas cooking in their house. Many of my clients are of Asian, Indian, and various multicultural backgrounds where gas cooking is a very important part of their culture. So in a way, I've almost found this to be discriminatory in a way, in that they can't cook the same foods that they do normally in their cultures. I like the idea of having allowing at least for gas cooking inside the house. I've dealt with all the other things like the solar hookups for car chargers and the heat pumps for the gas heating, the hybrid water heaters. I think those technologies are there, and they are sufficient to they're sufficient to meet the REACH codes, but I don't believe that the cooking appliances are caught up yet. So I would encourage a little bit more thought into not preventing people from having gas cooking in their house.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. And I see Ms. Nig hand up also.
May I ask a question of Louis, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much for your insight, Louis. Is it acceptable to your clients that if they want to install gas, so rather than prohibiting it inside the building, we allow gas as we do today, but you have to pre-wire for an induction cooktop. So in the future that your client could then switch to induction or just, not install induction in the future. Can you give us some insight into that, please?
Yeah, in most of the houses we design, or actually all of them, we have the provision for both. And so I would encourage my clients to do that, and I think that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nig, did you want to give us your comments? You're on mute. Go ahead. Ms. Nig, please go ahead. Okay, we can't hear you, so we may have to come back to you. Mr. Nugent, if you want to go ahead and give us your comments.
Hello, this is Mike Nugent. I'm on Caden Lane. I have a question regarding outdoor equipment. My understanding is that gas pool heaters can consume an inordinate amount of energy and therefore that much more carbon effect on the environment. Is there a reason why you've not made that one appliance that is such a bad, so bad for the environment in your bans, in your recommendations?
Okay, and that's a fair point, and I would request if you're still with us, Zoe, if you can address the issue of both the fact of whether the technology is there where electric stoves can be inserted instead of gas stoves, and the effect on the carbon itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would suggest on the pool heater question, I'll address it at a high level, but my colleague, Peter Mastasic or Farhad would be great because they've both done some deeper research on pool heating. I don't know the exact amount of emissions from gas pool heating, but I can speak at a high level. But I'll start with cooking. So this cooking is a really personal thing, right? And people are familiar, many people are familiar with cooking with gas. Also, I think it's an important piece of information is actually, even since the last REACH codes were adopted in 2019, a lot more information has come up around the health impacts of cooking with gas. So children who live in homes where there are gas stoves have higher incidences of asthma, right? It makes sense when we're combusting gas inside home, ventilation isn't always as strong as assuming is. For that reason, the state code actually now requires higher ventilation levels on gas stoves. So if homes are built with gas, they need to have higher ventilation requirements because of the health impacts. And then I think in some ways, the way that again, that electric vehicles or people have really begun to love them, there's a big movement towards induction cooking, and that as people become more familiar with it, places such as the French Laundry have induction cooktops in their commercial kitchens. It's not like cooking with the old electric coils that I used for a period when I was young, right? It's a really responsive, really, really safe type of cooking, really easy to clean. So more and more, there is a movement and a real deep appreciation at all levels for induction cooking. It doesn't mean that it's the perfect cooking type for every type of cuisine. As I mentioned, we do hear people who prefer to use gas woks. So that I will make that statement. I will say on the pool heaters, there are electric heat pump pool heaters that are commercially available. They tend to, they work and they function and can be powered by clean energy. They do take longer to heat a pool than a gas pool heater. So, you know, that's just what the performance is that there is longer. And if there's kind of deeper questions on that question, I think that Farhad or Peter could get into the details of pool heating.
Yeah, thank you for your response. I think let's see what other questions come up. Councilmember, let me just stay with the public. Ms. Nick, I see your hand up again. Do you want to make another attempt to address council? You are on mute. Please go ahead. Unfortunately, we still can't hear you. Suggestions been made to promote Ms. Nick to panelist. It might make it easier for her to address us. Can we do that?
I just promoted her. She just needs to accept the panelist promotion.
Okay. All right, you're on mute, Ms. Nick. Okay, go ahead. I think we may be able to hear you now. We can't. All right. That's why I think we need to go to hybrid so you can appear in person, I suppose. And I'm not sure what's going on with that. Any other member of the public wish to address us? Having none, I will bring it back to council. And Councilmember Lawler, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question regarding wood burning fireplaces. I know that they're banned in some parts of California. This might be a question for our attorney. Are new builds allowed to build wood burning fireplaces?
I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head. I would suspect that unless you're making local amendments to your building codes, the answer would be yes. So I suspect that that is a jurisdiction by jurisdiction determination.
Okay, yeah, I think it's more regional due to air quality. So I know a lot of folks have wood burning fireplaces, but they have gas lines to them. Is there, when we talk about banning all indoor gas appliances, banning indoor gas fireplaces, what would the alternative be? Are there electric fireplaces that are worthwhile? And given there's a power outage, how would one heat their home in the winter if it's prolonged? Just out, curiosity. Thank you.
Yeah, perhaps Zoe can answer that question.
Yeah, I think that question was for me. Yeah, great question. So yes, there are electric, and I think there's also a technology with an alcohol burning fireplace. They are both ornamental and provide, but I don't know that they provide, depending on the size of the house, how much heat they could provide. But unrelated to your question about how would you heat your home in the winter during a power outage, furnaces, whether they are gas powered or if they're electric heat pumps, they have the blower. And so it's often, this is a question that we often get, that the gas appliances also the gas furnace would not work during a power outage any more than an electric heat pump would work during a fire outage, power outage. And the same, I was just going for the other appliances, because the water heaters also have similar performance when the power goes out. So an electric heat pump water heater, like a gas heat pump water heater, has water that is stored in the tank, and thus you would be able to use that water would stay warm when the power goes out, just like the gas heater does. But all of our modern appliances nowadays have an electric component to them, so even gas appliances don't always work when the power goes out. It's even my mom found this out as she recently remodeled her kitchen. It's even can be the case actually with gas stoves. Again, it's one when I grew up with some older gas stoves, you can light them with the lighter when the power goes out. Many gas stoves are now come with something called an interlocker, which is another safety feature, so that when the power is out, they actually don't work. So it's not really an answer to say how, can these appliances, how do you heat your home? But it's really just that the performance in the power outage is really similar between gas and electric appliances.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Lawler, did you have any other questions?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on council have any questions? All right, so we were discussing the energy reach code, which and the recommendation was to have move towards outdoor gas appliances would be okay. Indoor, the idea was to go ahead and just do electric appliances only. I think that was the recommendation. So any further discussion on that? Councilmember Luthol, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to address the issue. Mr. Levine has been trying to address us and trying to figure out if we can allow him to call in by phone and address us that way. I know it's more complicated. I'm not sure if we're set up to do that. If so, if we could give him a phone number, I can text that to him, or we could publish it here. But I know he feels strongly and wants to speak to this issue if at all possible.
He can call in to the numbers that's listed on the agenda. I just need to know what number he's calling from, and I can give him permission to speak.
Do you want to go ahead and repeat those numbers? And is there a passcode on there too, I believe?
I guess you can call it, it's on the front of the agenda. There's several numbers, 669-444-9171. The webinar ID is 814-0443-8256. And the password is 275028.
Okay, hopefully that helps you, Mr. Levine. If that doesn't, then I think you can call into either Diane's direct phone number, or maybe you can even call my number, and I can have you on the speakerphone.
They may need to update their Zoom application as well. I think that's where the issue is and why they're not able to speak. They may have an older version of Zoom on their computer.
All right. Hopefully they have the phone number so we can go from there. Councilor Luto, did you have any other comment or question?
No, I'll withhold my comments for now. I just wanted to make sure that they get the opportunity to speak. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner?
Yes, if I may express my opinion about this, please.
Go for it.
I'm afraid that our electric grid in California is pretty antiquated and fragile. This is doubly true here in California than in any other state. For example, our grid is running near maximum capacity and we have seen it break down. Just the last 10 days, we have just seen cutbacks trying to avoid blackouts. Blackouts are bad enough, but when our grid breaks, we get forest fires. Forest fires destroys homes and kill people. And 30% of Monte Sereno, as you know, is in high fire danger areas. And I remember the Loma Prieta earthquake, and I don't know how many of you were here at that time. We did not have electricity in Los Gatos and Monte Sereno for 2 weeks, okay? Safeway was closed for 2 weeks. A lot of the residents had to leave town and go to a hotel. We were fortunate enough at that time to have a gas generator. So our neighbors came by, used our refrigerator, came by to take showers, and asked us to plug in their extension cord so they would have electricity. And I know that putting all your eggs in one basket is not a good idea. I think it would be better, we would be better served having diversity in our energy resources. Also, I don't think that the council should make decisions about what goes into a resident's home, right? I think we should leave that to our residents. They are intelligent enough to know whether it's going to be good for them or not. With a small generator and an extension cord, I can run the blower and have heat in my home during a blackout. Energy diversity increases our strength and our resiliency. So I think we should have respect for our residents. Our people do not need to be told what kind of stove to have, how to heat their water, or whether they need an EV charger. And let me say this about an EV charger. I asked how much it would cost to have a level 2 charging station at my house. They said it was going to be $14,000. This is what the electrician said. And PG&E claimed that they would have to do engineering work. So I said, how much would it cost? They said, well, you're going to have $1,500 for a deposit. Well, I said, how much is it going to cost? They said, well, we can't tell you until the work is done. I said, so I'm going to give you the okay to do the work, and you're not going to tell me how much it costs? They said, yes. So I said, well, that's crazy. That's a blank check. So to this day, we have not been able to install the level 2 charging station. I want to know what PG&E is going to charge me before they come and touch anything in my house. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lawler.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, while I applaud the drive towards clean energy, I mean, obviously we need to do this. I do, Councilmember Turner makes a point. Our energy grid with renewables right now is not reliable and it's not durable. We just don't have the grid to support all electric right now. And a Bloom Energy report last year even acknowledged that there was a 34% increase in gas-powered generators. So the adverse effect is people are buying these gas generators and spewing more diesel into the air. So I think the prudent thing to do right now is keep it mostly electric for now until, give it a couple years and see where we are in terms of the power grid and battery storage and all those other components that would create a more durable power source. But I am agreeable to the two level 2 EV chargers, because I know for sure that is something people are doing now, is buying electric cars, right? So people are still married to their gas stoves, and until gas or electric stoves are the more desirable form of cooking, I think we still need to afford people the choice. After all, it is their choice. And I think that that's right now what we can do, but revisit it in a couple of years and see where we are. And maybe it makes more sense then. But it sounds like for now, most people still want those gas stoves. So it's a delicate balance, but there's other things that we can do to drive clean energy forward. And that would be with the EV chargers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Mikecha.
Thank you. I want to remind council, and in particular Council Member Turner, that what we're talking about in terms of EV charging isn't for existing homes, it's for new homes. And I think our building official would probably say that most new homes in the city of Monte Sereno that are over 4,000 square feet, and I believe that we had an architect on the earlier tonight that referred to custom homes, and they're full of electricity. They've got lots of capacity for new construction. It's not a renovation, it's new construction. And I believe that we should have one EV plug, quote, level 2 ready for every parking spot in a garage. If there's 2 parking spots, then have 2 plugs. If there's only 1 parking spot, have only 1 plug. So we should have 1 plug per parking spot, plus we should have 1 exterior EV ready plug. That's what I have in my home. I've got 1 exterior and 2 interior inside the garage. And with respect to resiliency, I think that yes, if we allow natural gas outside the home, then we can have, our residents can have natural gas generators. I'm good with that. I think that our residents that are in the hillsides, they need that. However, it's becoming more and more acceptable and to have battery chargers that are available. So that gives them the alternative. And then my final point that Councilmember Turner raised was, our residents are pretty smart people. Let them make a decision. Yes, I agree. Let them make a decision. But there are certain people that are building spec homes in the city of Monte Sereno. And I know of one particular property that was built on a spec development, and I know the architect, and they did not put EV charging or wiring inside the garage. And the purchaser of that home, they had to install new chargers, new capacity, because it wasn't put in the home when it was built. And that's a spec home. So on a spec home, people will try to reduce every possible item they can, generally speaking. And that's the people that we need to give direction to. So to repeat, I'll say that 1 level 2 outlet ready per parking spot in the garage, per parking spot, and 1 exterior. And the rationale for the exterior is that at some point in time that you need to have, you're going to use a garage space. So that's going to be taken out of commission. And so it gives you a backup. And I think the other council members spoke in terms of having redundancy is a good thing. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Leuthold, please go ahead.
I have a couple of my own comments, but I want to put Mr. Levine on. I've got him on speakerphone here, so I'm going to patch him through now and unmute him, and he can make his comments here.
Go ahead, Mr. Levine. We can barely hear you, but maybe the speaker should be on.
Many decades ago when I was in middle school. I'd just like to make a comment, especially on the gas stove. I'm a Jewish guy who's been married to a Chinese spouse for the last 30 years and live around the world from Louis. I'd just like to state up front, French laundry cooking is very, very different than Eastern cooking. My mother-in-law is no longer alive. It's a very different style of cooking, and I do feel this is discriminatory towards that type of cooking. So I'd like to take that into account. I also mentioned, you mentioned Cupertino. I would highly question if the hardcore Asian families in Cupertino not cooking in some of the things. Wouldn't be surprised. One, my mother-in-law had a corn hot plate that she used. So I don't think things were as compliant as you think they are. Last comment, if you're hearing, is I want to go back to the individual making decisions. If things are priced right, I'm going back to basic economics. Individuals are smart and they will make the proper decision. If electric is really genuinely more cost effective, that's the direction the individual will make. Obviously, that's not the case because people are still leaning towards gas. I mean, the theoretical way of taking care of that would be to increase the price of gas. So, Monte Sereno to stick with their current plan. I'm not a climate denier. I just think that you need to let the individuals make that decision and not the people make them. Hope that makes sense. Be glad to talk about it more in depth if anybody wants. I did study some regulatory economics in grad school, so I feel pretty strongly about this, but I think you're approaching it all wrong. Just my opinion. And again, French laundry is not Chinese cooking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Appreciate your comments as always. Councilmember Lawler, I think you had your hand up previously. I don't know if you want to have any further comments.
No, I forgot to put it down. Thank you.
Okay, again, Councilman Leuthold, anything else?
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you for accommodating Mr. Levine. I know he has strong opinions here. I actually just happen to have somewhat similar opinions, kind of a middle ground perhaps. So my comment is, I feel that we do still need to accommodate the potential for people to choose gas cooking if they want to go that route, but certainly should have wired for the electric. So I think that is the right compromise there for now. Induction cookers or other solutions may come through at some point. I'm a lot more neutral on the water heaters and the furnaces. I could go either way. Certainly, if we are allowing gas, we need to require the wiring for both of those to be potentially electric and have the market decide. But if we do want to kind of do what's right environmentally, those I believe are certainly reach targets for electrifying without interfering with really the use and enjoyment of the home. I hear what's being said about by Ms. Turner and potentially others about heating as a heat source, although we do live in a pretty mild climate. This isn't Texas or somewhere where we're actually going to freeze to death. So it's more a matter of convenience on that. So I think in terms of reach, I'm willing to be supportive of everything up to, but not including taking away the cooking option. So that's where I stand. And in terms of EV chargers, I agree with Mayor Pro Tem. I think we need to make sure the EV chargers are in place. And we may want to consider, I don't know if it would be an add-on or something that we may want to consider in the REACH code, requiring that the transformers and the wiring be battery backup ready for whatever that means, not requiring people to have them, but to make sure that it's easy for people to wire them in. Again, we're talking about new construction. If these are spec homes, make the builders do it right. If these are people building their own homes, they're going to want to have done it right and have that flexibility going forward. So I think I'm ready to support REACH all the way up to the stove level, but not quite reaching the stove yet. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if you guys want to comment some more, or if we should have Mr. Luthold convert that into a motion. Councilmember Turner, go ahead.
Yes, I want to ask a question, actually. Can you define what new construction is? Does that apply to remodels? Does that apply to ADUs?
Hello. So the definition of new construction is something that we are working on formalizing a policy for. We don't currently have one, but yes, if there is a new detached ADU constructed, that is new construction. If you're converting an existing pool house or detached garage to an ADU, that is not considered new construction.
And if
Yes,
you're remodeling your house?
So these are actually definitions that are all used in the existing building code, which is a matter of uniform state law. The building code has definitions for new construction, and then alterations and additions. So with respect to creating these REACH codes, new construction basically is a new building. Alterations would be what you are likely to consider remodeling. There are jurisdictions that impose additional requirements on remodels, specifically when they reach like a certain dollar threshold, and they may require retrofits for energy efficiency, from a laundry list of potential energy efficiency upgrade options. Now, those haven't been proposed by staff, but I'm throwing that out there because I have seen them. And then there are additions. And again, I don't think staff are proposing any sort of REACH code requirements for additions to existing structures. Really, the way that the city's historical REACH codes have been enacted and exist, they only apply to completely new construction. So that would be a new standalone single family home or a new standalone ADU.
Thank you for that clarification. Ali Fatehpur has his hand up. If you want to make a comment, Ali. Go ahead. You're on mute, Ali.
Sorry, just wanted to confirm what City Attorney and Ms. Perkins mentioned. We are applying these, we are recommending these new requirements for the new construction, not remodels. And as far as the definition of the remodel and the new, as Ms. Perkins mentioned, soon we are going to bring this to the council's attention for their approval to create a new definition, because currently the city of Monte Sereno does not have that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council before we entertain a motion from Mr. Luthold? Okay, not seeing any further comments. If Council Member Luthold be kind enough to make your motion.
So I guess, thank you, Mayor. I guess what we're really looking at here is direction tonight. But I would suggest that by way of direction, we ask staff to bring the reach codes back for final discussion and determination with obviously still some potential for a menu of choices. But it sounds like we're looking at addressing EV charging, one per space, and an outdoor charger for that Mayor Pro Tem Mekachuk brought into the mix, and that we are keeping the gas option open, certainly for cooking, and we're going to need to make a final decision about whether water heaters and furnaces keep that option or not. And then I think that we heard that we are still open to outdoor gas use. That's something that we may need to talk about further if there is further input regarding the environment or any serious reasons why we should be blocking outdoor gas use. So if I've stated that correctly and that's enough direction, then perhaps we can close this out and then bring that back for formal reach code adoption at a future meeting.
Yeah, I think it'll become part of the building codes that have to be adopted based on our direction. Council Mayor Pro Tem Mekachuk, you still have your hand up?
Yes, I think I agree with everything that Council Member Leuthold said. I think that was fairly accurate. To make it easier, I think that the wording that was in our prior reach codes several years ago, we're not asking for changes to that. And I think it required it allowed gas inside the house, provided that you had electrical conductors or wires in place for induction cooktops, for a heat pump water heater, all electric, and for battery backup. I think those were the three areas. And I believe that we should allow gas for external use for swimming pools and swimming pool heaters, and for generators. So I think that that's the direction that is appropriate, and I'd ask for clarification on that if I'm off base on that.
It sounds good. So basically we're saying the staff recommendation basically on it had one level 2 EV ready, but we are going to 2 depending on how many parking spaces we have in the garage. And then the reach codes we had before, we're not undercutting those, they're going to stay the same. And inside the house, it'll be all electric except for the stove, which would have a gas option available. That's my understanding.
And well, any cooking appliance, right? Stove, oven.
Yeah, any cooking appliance with that available. All right, if that summarizes it.
But I think it was to allow natural gas water heaters so long as you also had electrification in the future allowable for that, or conductors or wires, available for that.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I think given the climate emergencies and everything else that's going on, the cooking utensils with gas makes sense because people like to cook with gas. But for the electric appliances, I think it's time to move the new construction towards the electric thing so we can save on the deleterious effects of the gas. That was my thought on it. But
I'll jump in, Mayor, if I may. I'm in agreement with what you're saying. I think it's time, given that the water heaters and furnaces are generally requiring electricity in order to run their gas features nowadays. I'm ready to go ahead and move away from having the gas furnaces and gas water heaters in new construction. Again, we're not making anyone change what they have now, but I think we can go, I think in terms of advancing one step towards electrification, we can require that in our new construction, that the heaters and water heaters be all electric at this point. I'm open to that anyway. Obviously, when we get to adopting the code, we could back away from that once we see it in print and get more feedback from our citizens.
I'm good with that, Councilmember Leufeld. I'm with you.
Councilmember Turner.
Yes, I'm a little bit confused here because we're still not addressing the problem of the increased load on an overloaded grid, right? So we'll say, yes, we have all these things, but nothing's going to work. It's like having an electric car and you can't charge it until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Or you can go get a car insurance and you don't have a car, right? So these are some of the things that we're imposing on our residents. And the other thing I wanted to ask as well is your level 2 charger. That's both 50 amps, right? So putting one in each parking space is an overkill. So those are my comments.
Okay, Councilor Lawler.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify with either with our planner or our attorney. I thought water and space heating equipment was already required to be electric by the state. Am I mistaken?
So currently, the water heater and furnace allowed by the state is allowed to be gas. The state does not have any current mandates for electric appliances. Our current Monte Sereno municipal code requires for the water heater, the space heater, the furnace, as well as the stove to provide the electric infrastructure if a gas appliance is installed in new construction. I don't think we've really gotten into all of the details yet of the upcoming codes, but my understanding is that the upcoming energy code for 2022 is pushing more towards electric space heating, but for single family, it's still not mandated. But when a designer runs the energy calculations for a new house, there'll have to be more offsets that they include in other areas of the house for energy savings if there is a gas furnace.
Yeah, I believe the planner is correct. So the way the building standards code works is that every 3 years, the state adopts a new building code, and every jurisdiction is required to update its local building codes and begin enforcing those new codes. The 2022 Energy Code encourages electric heat pumps and establishes electric ready requirements for homes and expands solar requirements and battery storage standards. But I don't believe that it specifically requires use of electric heat pumps. And I think that Ms. Perkins is likely correct in that by tightening the energy efficiency standards overall, it sort of pushes people towards the electric requirements just because of your overall energy efficiency requirements are home-wide. So.
Okay, so that makes it seem like then it's easy for people to make that choice anyway.
Yes, I
and it
believe
wouldn't
so.
necessarily need to be mandated. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? I guess, do you have clarity, Ms. Perkins, or do you need some more clarity from council?
I think I would appreciate, I think a little bit more clarity on what we want to do, what council's direction is for the furnace and the water heater.
My understanding is that at this time we would, for new construction, it'll be all electric inside except for the stove, which could be gas, as long as it has an option
Or oven.
for electric. So let's just keep it that simple.
Okay.
I think Mr. Turner has a lot of concern about whether we're going to get enough electricity. If I let Ms. Elizabeth loose, she will fill us with how many mega and gigawatts of electricity contracts Silicon Valley Clean Energy has entered into in the last few years, and how the state has mandated that all the electric utilities and the load sharing entities, the PG&Es and the Silicon Valley Energies enter into multi-year contracts to supply all the electricity we need. We'll still be short, but that's the direction we're going. So hopefully it won't be as bad. All right, with that, is there anything further that we need to discuss or not?
Also, Mayor, if also the council could provide a little bit more clarity as far as the number of EV chargers in the garage, would it be the 2 recommended or based on the number of the parkings?
Yeah, it's my understanding, and Mr. Councilor Luthol, you can clarify that if you want to go ahead with that.
Yeah, I think what we've discussed was if it's a 1-car garage, one charger. If it's a 2 or more car garage, 2 chargers, and then an additional charging port outside. To address Ms. Turner's comment about that, I did just want to put in one more piece of information about the reasoning for that. To go ahead and have the infrastructure there for that second circuit. Just published recently in the last couple of days was information that California fully expects that I don't remember the date and I'm not going to make it up, but at a date in the not too distant future when more electric cars have been adopted, the ability to draw on the batteries of the electric cars in an emergency is projected to actually provide 3 to 4 days of residential power needs for the state in an emergency. So it's really not imposing the circuitry to charge those cars at 100 amps. It's to potentially draw back from those cars. And in terms of charging the cars and when people charge them and how they charge them, people having solar are going to be able to pour that energy into the cars during the afternoon hours instead of losing that energy. My neighbor was doing that just recently during the recent heat wave, was actually able to charge his cars and then conserve energy during the 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. And he was at 0 energy use from the grid between his solar and his Tesla. So I think this is the wave of the future. We really are moving towards this, and we're going to be there very, very soon. So I think these codes will facilitate that, and I think that's where the second circuit comes in.
Thank you for those comments. Ms. Perkins?
Yes, if I can just clarify to make sure I've got all of the direction correct. I believe I heard from Council Member Mekachek that his desire was for a level 2 charger for every garage parking space, plus the one outside. So if there were a 3-car garage, would council want the 2 level 2 EV chargers inside, or 3 since there's 3 parking spaces inside?
I would say 3. That was my intention. That's what I tried to describe. One level 2 outlet per indoor garage parking spot.
I would just jump in and say to Mr. Mekachek, that may be overkill. What happens when a person has a 6-car garage and so forth? So I'm not willing to go beyond 2 indoors and then the 1 outdoor, but you can ask for it.
I wasn't willing to go that far, but after your comment, Councilor Luthol, as to why that would be helpful, because you can use those chargers to shore up your own house electric current, it makes a little bit more sense to have more things on there. So I guess you could say that would be recommended to have more than 2, but limited to at least 2.
If I may jump in, just to make a point, you can charge more than 1 car from the same, you can take turns charging cars. So is it redundant to have more than one per, you know what I mean? Like, so having the two in a 2-car garage or a 3-car garage, you could still charge 3 cars ultimately on 2. So it's just about how much do we really need, but they are just outlets. So you could still have the 3 outlets, just 2 cords. So it's really just convenience factor, I suppose.
May I jump in?
Let's see if we can wrap this up. I mean,
Okay.
we can
So I do want to address this because we have 4 electric vehicles. Okay. And you know, when in the morning, when it's like you can swap, you can share the cords, etc. But it sure makes it a lot easier when you don't have to do the, oh gee, you didn't plug the car in last night. Everyone's got their car, everyone plugs it in. If they don't plug it in, it's their issue. And you know, I don't know, maybe I just like peace and harmony. And it's just like, let's just do it. And if you have the outlets, that doesn't mean you have to have a charger there. It gives you the flexibility to have one if you want. And that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, I think we're only talking about outlets. We're not asking that people actually install a complete charger. And putting an extra outlet is probably not going to cost somebody a lot of money to have it inserted. I would suggest we leave it at that. Maybe to make everybody comfortable. Yeah, make everybody comfortable. Probably say that at least 2 chargers outlets will be available and 1 outside. Councilmember Turner, I don't mean to cut you off. Please go ahead.
Yes. So California now has 56 megawatts capacity, and we're now using 51 megawatts. So there's not a lot of excess, right? And I think what Sean was saying is not quite correct. A Tesla takes about 70 kilowatt hours to fully charge. Okay. And for Mayor Pro Tem Mekachek, you're taking your situation and applying it to all residents, that you have 4 cars and you want to have peace of mind. What about residents who don't have electric cars, right? And they don't need it. They will always have peace of mind. So I would say that we should let people make their decisions depending on their situation, rather than us forcing the situation on the residents. Thank you.
Councilmember Luthold. Let's see if we can wrap this up. I think we're not going to solve the entire California grid problem, but let's see what we can do.
I think though what we're seeing here is the concern and the passion and the issue, and we're seeing a microcosm of what our citizens would be saying if they were having these discussions with us, as they should and as we should be considering. I wanted to clarify this issue and maybe get some input from Ms. Perkins or Mr. Fatapur. The issue of whether we are talking, what are we talking about? First of all, we are talking about only in new construction. We're not talking about forcing people who have their houses set up the way they are to go and install $14,000 worth of additional charger infrastructure in each of these garage spaces. We're talking about somebody putting in an additional 20 feet of 50 amp wire and an outlet and in new construction so that it's ready to go. And we're talking about putting in a much more robust panel so that the electricity uses of the future will be accommodated in these houses, and we won't be having to upgrade our panels at extreme expense or unknown expense. But I did want to clarify to what Mr. Mekachek is saying about outlets versus chargers, because what my concern is the amperage of the panel and what we're asking to pull or push from PG&E. And I think that's very important. If we say someone has a 3 or a 4 car garage and they have 4 outlets, does that mean we have to accommodate 200 watts of panel exclusively dedicated to push or pull from those EVs? That is unreasonable
Yeah.
200 watts is twice or 4 times what houses have traditionally had. So bringing in an extra 50 amps or maybe even extra 100 amps through the panels is one thing, but we don't want to get this wrong. So if our planners could speak to that, that would be great.
Maybe we can have a council member.
As long as the extra outlets require a dedicated circuit, then a panel upgrade and larger panel would be required. And currently that's what the standards are. We are, this requirements in the building code is requiring dedicated circuit. So if the direction is to have additional EV chargers level 2, then perhaps upgraded panel would be required. A larger panel on the new construction would be required.
And what is reasonable in terms of a panel in 2022 nowadays? What should we be talking about in a normal, well put together home when connecting to the grid?
So for new construction, we see electric panels sized generally 200 amps would be the smallest that we would see for a new house, and you know, there are some of those all the way up to we've had some 400 amp panels provided in new houses. So a couple of points on the amount of amperage required for the different or the number of level 2 chargers. When the electrical load calculations are determined, the loads are not counted at 100% and continuous. So if you had 3 level 2 chargers, which may be 40 amps each, that wouldn't necessarily require 120 amps out of the panel. So that when you add up when you do the load calculations from the electrical code, there's sort of assumptions made within the calculations about how many appliances would be used continuously or concurrently. Additionally, there is an allowance that was new in the current code, in the 2019 codes, that allows a device called a load management system to be used for EV chargers. So what that would allow is, in order to avoid a very large panel, an unusually large panel to be installed to accommodate electric vehicle chargers, it's a device that could be installed. So it's an additional device, so an additional cost to the homeowner, but it would allow, for example, 50 amps total for the electric car chargers. And if you have 2 or 3 of them, if you're using one at a time, it would get the full amperage used. If you're using 2 or 3, it would automatically manage that load between the circuits that are being used, and everybody would charge a little bit slower. So that would avoid a potential unusually large panel. But again, it's an additional device at an additional cost.
All right. I guess we're making progress. We've known everything we ever wanted to know about EV chargers.
No way.
Councilmember Turner.
Yes.
More
So let me
information
just
shared with us.
I mean, you brought this up in our agenda, so let's talk about it, please.
Go for it.
Okay, so if those 3 are all plugged in, and in Brian Mekachuk's case, he's got 4. If they're all plugged in overnight, then it would require full capacity, right?
Of those circuits.
Yes.
In general, overnight, there would be other lower loads, electric loads in the house.
Yeah, he wouldn't
So
argue
it
with
wouldn't
his wife and
necessarily
kids.
overload your panel.
He wouldn't argue with his wife and kids, but he needs full capacity.
Okay. Any other, Councilmember Lawler, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I think staff has direction. So, I mean, just to be clear, we're going to stick with what you recommended was with the 2 EV chargers, because then that wouldn't unnecessarily overload a system. And this is only a new construction, correct? So that seems to be the most reasonable in terms of requiring that. While I do think that people ought to have the choice of whether or not they want to do that, it is providing the outlet for future use. And since we are going to have to all be driving electric vehicles by the year 2035, might as well start. So I guess is that the direction that I'm hearing too? Just to move in the interest of moving along.
Yeah, Councilor Luthol, does that summarize it well?
Well, I think we're still batting this back and forth as to one external, one internal, or one external and two internal, or one external and one for every space internal. And my vote goes to one external, one per space, up to two required internal. Again, that's my view on this.
I agree with that.
I know Mr. Mekachek wants one per space internal, whether it's 3, 4, or a 10-car garage. But I'm up to 2 on the internals, and anything more than that, I'll push back when we see them in the code, and expect that Ms. Turner will as well. And I don't know how the other votes fall on this. So, but I would suggest that we wire for up to 2 internal and 1 external.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Council, Mayor Pro Tem Mekachek, can you live with that?
I will go with what the majority wants, and if that's the direction, I'm good with that. But here we are. So yes, I will concur with that.
All right, I'll concur with Councilmember Luthol also, and Councilmember Turner.
I think we still need to think about this and ask the residents what they feel. And I mean doing Survey Monkey, not next door, please.
Yeah, well, you have directions, Ms. Perkins. It'll be part of the building code, and it'll be properly agendized, and we can get the thing. And I think the important thing is, if you put it in the new building construction code, you're really saving money for the potential residents, because then they don't have to try to spend $15,000 on installing one of these, because it already comes with the house, and it probably costs maybe a couple $100 or maybe a little bit more to get that done. So you have your directions. Anybody else have any other comment? Any member of the public who was not heard? If you had the opportunity to hear, I think we can still. Okay, I don't see any member of the public at this point. So. And I think the public discussion items are over. We've already discussed this matter. Anybody else have any other comments? Councilmember Lawler?
We're going to be talking about the water ones next, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah. So we have two reach code items. One had to do with the water, and one had to do with electricity. One had to do with water. That's a pretty risky mix when you put water and electricity together. So that's what we got today. All right, let's get into the water reach code discussion. Staff, if you want to comment on that, and thank you, Ms. Elizabeth, for helping us out with this issue today. Appreciate what you're doing, and it'd be good to get from you some information as to how much more energy we can expect from for us, so that we don't have blackouts. All right. Reach code, water reach codes, if you can, Ms. Perkins, if you can, I assume you're going to give a staff report on that?
Yes, in the staff report, starting on page 4, is the items that staff identified from the model ordinance provided by Valley Water. These are the items that staff identified are applicable to single-family new construction. So that would be applicable for our discussion tonight. And then there are staff comments for each item. The staff is not recommending adopting any water efficiency reach codes, as the items that have been identified from the model code, again, as applicable to new single family, is already very well covered in the standard codes, the standard state codes that we will be adopting.
Is there somebody from the Water West Valley or anybody else who wants to, that has some opinions or comments on this matter? I guess not, right? All right, so council, questions of staff? Councilmember Luthold and then Councilmember Lawler.
Yeah, I hadn't had a lot of time to understand the staff report here. And I'm not sure that I really understood the explanation just now. I guess kind of item by item, the one that stuck out to me was swimming pool and spa covers. And I guess just comment wise to me, both in terms of evaporation and heat issues, that seems to be a no-brainer for new construction that should be included. So I guess I wanted to clarify, is that already covered in California codes? If not, I'm all for including it in our codes. And then are there other kind of, if you could expand a little bit on the other ones about what we're talking about and what would be ideal? I mean, what is Valley Water suggesting? And why would we ignore their suggestions or follow their suggestions?
Sure. So we can start with the swimming pool covers, which is, we'll start at the end of the list and move up. So the California Energy Code requires currently and will continue to require a cover for all new swimming pools or spas that are heated, because the Energy Code is concerned, of course, about saving energy. So the additional requirement included in the Valley Water Model Ordinance is to also require a pool cover for non-heated pools, because of course, then that will save evaporation. Also, because the pools we see are all part of a single family home, we don't see any non-heated pools. So pretty much every new pool is currently and will continue to be required to have a cover, again, based on the California energy efficiency standards. And then the next item above is irrigation efficiency. And we currently enforce a state ordinance or a state requirement for water efficient landscaping on new construction. So I believe the threshold for that is 500 square feet of landscaping on what we currently enforce. So the Valley Water Model Ordinance would require the water efficient irrigation on it's related to new construction on any new construction. Again, because we don't see a new house with less than 500 square feet of landscaping, the requirements are already in practice already mandated. And then the next item moving up is a gray water system. And the Valley Water Model Ordinance suggests that in new construction that be provided at the clothes washer, as well as at least one tub or shower. So a gray water system is allowed in the California Plumbing Code, and it is only allowed for a clothes washing machine, a tub or shower, or your bathroom sink. And it's essentially a dual plumbing system that allows the building occupant would have access to a diverter, which would allow the drainage water to go to the typical sanitary sewer or to go outside to an underground perforated pipe. And then that water would percolate into the ground. And this has been allowed in the plumbing code for several code cycles now. We don't see them very often. I don't think other jurisdictions nearby see them very often either. One pretty significant concern with them is that the building occupant really needs to be on board with the gray water system, in that the detergents or soaps or shampoos that you would use need to be biodegradable or earth friendly, because if they're diverted to the gray water system, they're going directly to the ground and potentially impacting groundwater. And so,
thank you. Yeah, that actually was clear, and thanks for walking us through those. And I guess if you wanted to talk on the hot water as well, but with your explanation, the staff recommendations make sense to me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lawler.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Perkins, on the hot water distribution system, are we talking about tankless water heaters? Or are we talking about instant hot water pumps or something different?
These would be, there's something different. So it's not exactly a traditional recirculating system, but it is, the compact hot water distribution is very similar to what it sounds. Is you would locate the hot water heating source, your hot water heater, close to your plumbing fixtures that will use the hot water. And the intent of this is, from Valley Water's perspective, is to reduce the amount of water that comes out of the sink or the shower until you get the hot water. So, you know, the further the hot water heater is from the plumbing fixture, there's more cool water in the line that will be wasted when you are looking for hot water. So the idea is to reduce sort of that wasted water. These systems have been an option for people to use in the energy code because there is also related energy savings for these types of systems. Again, as we talked a little bit earlier, the energy calculations are determined, sort of a calculation determined for each house. So they are unique to each house, and the designer can put in trade-offs for different things to maintain a specified energy budget. So this type of system is an option that is allowed since the last code cycle, the 2016 code cycle. And every energy report, I shouldn't say every, the vast majority of energy reports for new construction are required to be filed with the state. So the state is able to see what types of features people are using. And since 2016, less than 1% of single family homes, new construction, have chosen to use this option in their energy efficiency requirements. And staff believes that's because the system requires the property owner to hire a third-party inspector, a home energy rating system inspector. And so there is, again, additional cost associated with that.
All right, thank you. That to me, this would be like a no-brainer, right? I mean, how many of us hate waiting for our water to get hot in the shower, right? And or using those buckets. I mean, this would be an easy thing. So for me, the state has to make this not so prohibitive, right? So I guess we have to wait for something to happen at the state level so that people could actually install these things without these checks, correct? You know, I mean, that's what it looks like to me, because this would make it super easy for people to save water. It really would. It's just mind-boggling that it's so costly because of a third-party inspector. So maybe that's something we can change. Thank you.
Just to be clear, I mean, do you really need an inspector, or is that more for determining whether you're efficient or not? I mean, you could have this thing installed. You don't need anybody to check it or
So
get a certification. Do you need a certification?
So in order to receive the credits as part of your energy design for your house, you do.
Yeah, but if you don't care about the credit, you just want to make sure you get the hot water right away.
Yeah.
We don't need to get the credit. I mean, I don't know how much credit is, 5 pennies on the dollar or something.
They can get credit elsewhere, I suppose.
Yeah, you don't need
Yeah.
the credit.
They're going to save money on their water bill.
Yeah.
Perhaps another alternative might be to require just a traditional water recirculating system, which circulates the water through the pipes so that the hot water is always there. So it doesn't take you don't lose any water in the system, but it is a more typical way than the compact hot water distribution systems.
Well, then, yeah, I would say that makes sense, because then we build in those water savings right away, and everyone's gonna every homeowner is going to like that. I mean, just in terms of being able to have hot water right away. Thank you.
Yes,
Good
so we
option.
need to look at it, how that can be incorporated if this is something that would help the new homeowner. All right, sorry to cut in, Councilmember Turner, please go ahead.
Yes, so tonight, I want to begin by, or end probably, by giving staff the recognition for the very good work that you've done on this water report, right? The analysis and the recommendations that you have. So I read through the report and I was impressed by how reasonable and rational it was. So I think you took into account the conditions in Monte Sereno and you showed consideration for our residents. So I very much appreciate this kind of work, and good job to you and to Steve and his team. So thank you.
Thank you. And the staff, we have an excellent staff and good work, so thank you for that. Mayor Pro Tem Makachuk.
Regarding gray water, I think that's still a little out there. So I'm fine leaving this out of the reach codes for this cycle. Regarding the hot water, traditional hot water recirc, like that's just, so if you've got a heat pump water heater and you can provide lots of hot water and you've got a recirc, hot water recirc, a traditional one, you get instant hot water when you want it. And that's a beautiful thing. I mean, you save water, and with a heat pump water heater, you're just getting as much hot water as you want when you want it. So I think if we were to require a hot water recirc, it would be good for staff to investigate that to see if we can in fact require that. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? If not, we'll go back to the public to see if any member of the public has any questions of staff on this particular topic. I don't think there are any hands up. So we'll bring it back to council for further discussion. So I guess the question is, what are we asking what's the reach in the water cycle? What are we supposed to be reaching for? Is everything going to stay the same? We are going to, one item Mayor Pro Tem wanted staff to investigate was the hot water recirc and see how that can be done. And if there's any other thing that we need to do, please address that. Councilor Lawler, please go ahead.
Oh, that Mayor, you said it already. It was just addressing the recirculation pump for making that a reach code for our water, so to speak.
Thank you, Councilor Turner. You're on mute.
My recommendation is to hold the water codes the way it is.
Okay. Any other discussion, comments? All right.
Well, I'd like to say we are in a drought, and will always be in a perpetual drought, and California has doubled its population in 40 years, but hasn't done anything with its water infrastructure. So anything that we could do to make it easy for residents to save water, not only does it save water, but it saves on their water bills. And so to me, making this change would make perfect sense and help everybody. I don't see how anybody could possibly be upset about that in the long run. So it's the one thing that we can do, given that we've done the irrigation stuff and given that the gray water just isn't feasible at this time.
Yeah, I think I agree with Councilor Lawler's comments, and we need to take steps. Sometimes they're baby steps, but this is, especially if you live in a house. I mean, like in my house, it takes forever for the water to get hot, and I really need some information on how to put the recirc in, and I don't think I've received. I probably haven't done enough work. So if Ms. Perkins could be kind enough to send me some material or brochures on it, that might help save some water in my house. The other question I wanted to ask you is on swimming pool covers. Does that apply to existing pools also? Even though they're not heated, do we need to put covers on those?
So the current requirements apply to new construction.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Luthor?
I was just going to comment regarding your comment about existing swimming pools. The general, and I think we may have had some discussions about this, but the general rule of thumb on evaporation is an uncovered swimming pool is using at least as much water as the same square footage of lawn. And so the city probably shouldn't be mandating covers retroactively for people, but we should be very strongly promoting them and getting the word out about the water issue. I think we've had some next door posts on that, but we definitely need to get the word out. If you're not covering your pool, you might as well just be overwatering your green lawn for that much space. So get your pool covered. And let's make sure that the city gets that message out to everybody that that's a huge waste of water that's easily solved with some bubble wrap on top of your pool, if nothing else.
I know the water district subsidizes non-green lawns so that you don't have to water them or change them. I wonder if they want to subsidize buying pools for people so that they save water on that also. Anyway. All right, any other comments, questions? Ms. Perkins, do you have directions on this particular agenda item now?
Yes, we do. So we will look to include the hot water recirculating system in new construction on the water side.
All right, so sounds good. Anything else? All right, I think we're done with our master agenda we have for today. So now we go to our fun stuff, I guess. Commission reports. That's where we are. Cities Association Board of Directors meeting. We haven't had any meeting last month because of the Long Beach Convention. So the City Association Legislative Action Committee, there's nothing to report. And the VTA PAC, Mayor Pro Tem Ekachek or Councilmember Luthol, if you have anything to report on that, please go ahead.
For the different JPAs that I'm involved with, that I'm assigned to, there's no updates since the last council meeting. So I had said everything about VTA and the other ones that I'm responsible for.
Thank you. Councilor Luthor?
Nothing on VTA, and on library, we're going to be nothing to report at this point, but I will be having some strategic planning meetings with the library board coming up, and then we'll have a report for you probably next time around.
Thank you, sir. Silicon Valley Animal Control, Councilmember Lawler and Turner, either one of you?
Yes, thank you. There will be Silicon Valley Animal Control Authority had their big fundraiser a couple Sundays ago. It was a huge success. We do have a short meeting tomorrow, but they will have a regular meeting in October, as well as Valley Water. I also have the Youth Commission, which started on Tuesday. It was a great meeting. The kids are super excited, and that's what prompted the move to try to get back into hybrid, because they're really aching to get back in person. And I think it would be such a benefit for them to do so. So that is all I have. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, I know we're all looking for the Youth Commission getting really involved with everything else that they would do. Thank you. Do you have any other committees, Councilmember Lawler?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Turner?
Yes. So if you allow me to speak, I will.
You don't need our permission. Go for it.
I wanted to talk about, first of all, Cal Cities. The League of Cities meeting was very well attended. There were 2,000 attendees and 400 voting delegates. So that means 400 cities. at the end of the meeting, they voted on the new officers, but they also voted on local control. And interestingly enough, the objective of the League of Cities is to uphold local control. And yet they rejected local control because they said they wanted to find out what it really means. So 100 cities signed up for local control, and it was voted down. I also want to report on the emergency preparedness, the neighborhood watch, Twin Creeks via Caballero. We had a very good meeting, an event party for pizza. And at that meeting, I was able to talk to people about signing up for the ADUs. So that's it.
Thank you. All right. I guess I'm the one that's left for the report, so I'll give you the report on. I'll continue with the report on the city council itself. I'm sorry, on the league, the California League. Yeah, it was very well attended. A lot of seminars, really good coverage on some of the legal seminars as to the rights that we need as council members. We need to watch for. And one of the most important one is conflict of interest. If anyone, if a council member has a direct interest in anything, then there's a good chance that the entire council cannot vote on that particular item. So like if you've got your own real estate business going and you're trying to sell something to the city, obviously it's not enough for you just to recuse, and the entire city council may not be able to vote on some of those things. There's a lot of development in the area of employment law because of the religious First Amendment restriction. You heard about the football coach case where the football coach wanted to play on the 50-yard line, and normally the cities were really reluctant to do that because they thought they'd get into trouble for promoting religion. But the Supreme Court has said it's a First Amendment right. He's doing it on his own time, and the cities cannot prevent him from doing that. So those are some of the things that have come up. The sessions, there's a lot of legal stuff that goes on into these sessions, and it's pretty good information that comes down. And it's very, very helpful. The Cities Association, generally, if a resolution, for them to be able to move forward with the resolution, those resolutions need to go through the procedure that the Cities Association has outlined, because I think what happens is on the last day, at the last minute, everybody wants to go home and they're not really want to listen to any debates. So whatever their marching orders are, they're more like, okay, whatever we recommend, that should happen, and nothing else will go through. So I thought that was a good resolution, and Councilmember Turner worked hard also to try to get that passed. But I think it's going to come up again. So it's something that's we need to continuously watch out for. Those are a couple of things that I've been on. I think we already talked about Valley Water Board, right? There was nothing else to report on those. So those are reports, and I assume some of your comments are already in there. But if there are any other comments, any council member wants to make, please go ahead. Okay, I don't hear any. So this is the time for our brave city manager to give us a report. City Manager Linares, Mr. Linares, if you could please let us know how things are going.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to comment on one item in particular. This Saturday at the Los Gatos Youth Park, there are 3 Youth Citizens of the Year that are being recognized. They'll be recognized by the town of Los Gatos, by the city of Monte Sereno, by Assemblymember Lowe's office, and by County Supervisor Joe Smidian, as well as State Senator Dick Cortese's office. And Mayor Pro Tem Mekchek will be there to present the certificates on behalf of Monte Sereno. But I just wanted the council to know that you are all invited to participate if you are available. Saturday morning at 10 a.m. at the Los Gatos Youth Park, located right behind the high school near the Boy Scout 529 Troop Headquarters. And resident Phil Knopf organizes and puts this event together every year. Monte Sereno resident Phil Knopf, who I think you all know. That concludes my comments for tonight.
Thank you. And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Makachek, for taking care of that. All right, anything else? Oh, future agenda item. Any particular agenda items you want to see? I think one of the items was kind of discussed was there's been 9 thing. We need to probably address that again. Maybe the November, December timeframe somewhere. I'd like to do it while Councilmember Lutzhold is still with us. I mean, he's a force to be reckoned with, so we need him. We need him there. So I guess it might be the last meeting in October. Maybe we need to look at that. Would that be too soon? I would suggest taking a look at that. Maybe we can have that on the agenda. Any other particular future agenda items, Mayor Pro Tem Makachek?
Yes, I don't have a future agenda item, but I did want to let everyone know that's attending this meeting that our progress towards the 225 ADUs, the signed commitment letters, we're at, I believe, 190 or 191 as of today. So I would encourage everyone that has not filled in a form to fill it in and submit it before we hit the 225, because I do believe we're going to hit that magic 225 number. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further comments or discussion? If not, we're going to close the meeting. All right. Thank you very much for participating. I know it's been a long meeting. Started at 5:30 today. It's 9:30 now. So everybody have a good evening. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.